on this morning, Mark. I know there's a board meeting tonight, or was it last night or tonight?
Actually, it was last night. Yes,
Right,
last
yeah.
night.
And so you guys had voted on a couple of things. Can we just kind of start there?
Yeah, yeah. So, there's a couple of things that we had to kind of address as a board last night. One, we were able to approve the grant application for our Head Start program. And so we look forward to more support and funding from our federal partners with respect to, our Head Start program. There's a lot of families that are out there that really use the services of our Head Start program. It's kind of like an early program for our children. So that's really good. There's a good parent engagement. So we were able to pass the grant application, and hopefully we get the resources and the funding to continue on that program. The other item that we took under action was the board resolution for our, of course, the strategic plan. Not board action, but information on the strategic plan. Looks like the month of April, we should be completing and finalizing our strategic plan, which basically gives us a 5-year plan for all facets of the Department of Education. Of course, we really want to focus on test results, scores. We want to ensure that we maximize our resources for our facilities, as well as ensuring that we're able to meet the obligations of the department financially. In addition to that, we also took action last night, which was a good topic of discussion, was the going back to face-to-face 100% next school year. And so, of course, the board through its committee went out. Ms. Gutierrez actually led this effort with her committee, Safe and Healthy Schools, communicated with the folks from the administration, school administrators, and also teachers. And of course, we try to engage with our families as much as possible, get some information with them. And so we had the numbers out there. I believe, if I understand it correctly, we're sitting around 2,000 students that are around on the online learning mode of learning. Obviously, Chris, we've invested a lot of resources and energy into that mode of learning. Should the case arise, the Department of Education will be able to revert back to online learning should there be another issue regarding the pandemic. However, 2022, 2023, the board, just so that we are able to plan accordingly for the beginning of the next school year, we kind of set the tone that yes, we are going to go back to face-to-face, but at the same time too, we're not going to completely take off the online learning opportunity.
Yeah. So in what instances would the department utilize online learning, Mark?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, we've specifically put the children with special needs, perhaps that parents may not still feel comfortable with. We don't know what the future is going to hold, Chris. And should the pandemic or the numbers or something, another variant comes through, we got to be able to have some mode of learning. So that's one. The second one is these kind of like specialty classes that are, if you will, and then the other portion of that, the flip side of that is we also have to communicate with our Guam Federation teacher partners. Those are the GFT, the union, because obviously, there's no real set in stone policy, for instance, like student caps. And so we want to make sure that the working environment is good for teachers all along the way. And so there's still more discussion to have to happen moving forward. But Chris, I just got to give it up to our teachers, the people in the trenches every day that go in and show up to work. And if we haven't said it enough and often enough, thank you so much, Jesus Maasi, for the work you do for our kids. And that goes for all levels, everybody who comes in contact with our students once they hit our doorstep. And so 2022, 2023 will be face-to-face mode of learning. And each of the schools will, and with the administration, with the superintendent, will develop a plan that we can put into policy moving forward. Because of course, Chris, we had to adapt and change to the environment and the situation we're in. So we want to put something in place. And that's what this strategic plan is also allowing us to do, is to look at our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and then how do we put that all together so that we have a department that's going to be able to move forward well into the next, 10 years, next decade. But our plan is really set for 5 years, and the new board members who are coming in, there's an election at the end of the end of the year. I'm not making a pitch. This is my last hurrah. And so I look forward to the next folks that will be coming in and ensuring that we continue education, public education for our kids.
So you're not going to run for education board again, Mark?
Yeah, I think I've, 5 years, I think is almost, 5 years going into it. I think I just appreciate the opportunity. Governor Cabell for appointing me as the parent rep at the time. And then I ran for 2 terms. And so this is the end of my second term. But, my goal was really to provide stability in the Department of Education, ensure that we have and advocate for the resources through our legislators, through our governor. And also, one of the biggest things I also wanted was to remove ourselves of high risk, which is oversight from our federal partners. Yeah. And I'm very comfortable. I feel very comfortable that, that we're just turning the corner, and that may be a historical highlight in how DOE is resilient in addressing, those conditions. And we're going to put things in place, Chris, that's going to ensure that we never go down that route again. It was such a costly and timely thing that just consumed a lot of our time.
Wow. So when does your term's up at the end of the year?
Yeah, end of the year. The end of the year. Yeah. My wife and I, my wife's an educator, teacher. I still have kids in the public school system. I love to help out. So you'll probably see me in other capacities, maybe going back to helping out with PTOs at the schools.
Yeah.
But I just, I think it's time for me to just help out in other ways. But I appreciate the support of the community. There's a lot of things that we are doing as a board to ensure, that the next folks that come behind us are going to be able to, pick up the baton and be able to run forward with it.
I mean, big shoes to fill, Mark. I don't know if you guys know this, but Mark actually cuts the grass at a few of the schools. I don't know if he has a contract or what.
Actually, that was the discussion last night, Chris. You want me to?
Did you guys hear what I said though? He gets on a riding mower, and someone sent me. I saw a video of him cutting the grass over at GW. So I just want to thank you, Mark. I mean, I feel like your heart's definitely in the right place for this, and I'm sad to see you go.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the time. It's really time. I have kids that are in the public school system, so like I said, I want to be able to focus a little bit of my attention to helping them out. This is their the stages in their life that I think, we just got to be able to provide, as a parent, some guidance to them. I got boys, man. So,
Mark, I wanted, because you said your wife's an educator, right? So,
yes.
Do you anticipate before your term is up that we will see the teacher increase and GDOE staff pay increases that we're talking about right now?
Yeah. So when that came up, Chris, I spoke to the superintendent, and I appointed my colleagues, Vice Chair Mary Okada, Dr. Mary Okada, and Ms. Gutierrez. And both of these folks have real good expertise. Of course, Mary, second to none when it comes to finances of government and just federal funding. It's a great asset to have on the board with their understanding about funding and government. And then, of course, Ms. Gutierrez has been on the board for last night. They dubbed her as the historian because she knows where all the resolutions are at and all the. And so she has a background in HR. She used to work at Civil Service Commission. So what we're looking at is the educator pay. When you look at educators, there's a category within the Department of Education. But of course, we also have other employees that are although they're not considered educators, in essence, they are educators because they help educate the kids from the time they come to the door all the way. And, really looking at the resources of government and where this funding is going to come. Obviously, the administration, the governor, and the legislators, they put this before us, and we're going to present it to them, the different levels and the different options of what, this pay increase, whether it's going to be across the board or it's going to be a scale. And we're going to provide those options for them to kind of review and kind of consider. Our real objective really, Chris, is to ensure that the morale and people get paid equal pay for equal work that they contribute. And I know for a fact that teachers go way above and beyond high school, our elementary school teachers. And so I got to say, though, one thing, Chris, at least under our board, current board, we're able to work with the GFT, with President Tim Fedenko and his team, basically to really just, working environment, superintendent working with them to ensure that we listen to what the teachers are saying. Obviously, sometimes we have folks that may not agree, but at the same time too, we're looking at the totality of education and how do we move ourselves forward. So we definitely, it's on our agenda that we are going to present this hopefully by the end of April, early May, right before we go before the legislative body to justify, and not say defend, to justify our budget, because I think we provided a very clear track of what we were doing with the federal money and how we're going to be spending that, and then what we need from the local appropriations. But that does not negate the fact, Chris, that we need to ensure that the department is fully funded moving forward now that the federal government has invested time in some hard resource materials like textbooks, has invested some of the stuff in capital improvement projects. So it basically kind of gives us a little reprieve, Chris, on the local side. But this 14 points, and I'll say it out publicly, that we really, if they're gonna hold us to those 14 points, which mean the board and the superintendent can be sued if we violate any of those things, they gotta give us the appropriate funding. But we also gotta be realistic in how we're doing it. Now we have charter schools, of course we have the private schools. And so charter schools is another form of public schools because it's still publicly funded, but they're really not under the purview of the DOE, rather they're a governing board. So all these multiple moving pieces when it comes to educating our children has to come into play.
Yeah, I mean, and it's almost been, I don't want to say maybe adversarial is too strong of a word, but just I'm disappointed in the relationship that you guys have with your oversight chair. I feel like it could be better, and hopefully it will heading into these budget hearings. Mark, just a change of a topic, and I forgive me if this had come up earlier, but what's the status on the school safety partnership? The school safety partnership program. This is
that with GPD and
remember there was a whole, you guys had a whole thing. It was GPD, JIBWIC, Public Works, Guam Homeland Security. Go ahead.
You know, that's a good question. Question on a topic I can definitely bring up with the superintendent. I don't have the finer details of it, but I do know, our Safe and Healthy Committee, if there's anything that comes up, I do know that the superintendent has a good working relationship with the chief of police. But in terms of that program that you're specifically talking about, I'm not, thoroughly familiar with it, and I can definitely get some information for you regarding that and share with the public, or even have the superintendent when he comes in on your Wednesday shows. He'll probably have the finer details on the operations side.
Right. Mark, just lastly, Isaiah Uggan, our education reporter, asked me to get a comment from you on improving grades of GDOE students.
You know, Chris, that's one of the toughest challenges we had, the different modes of learning. Initially, when we started this pandemic, of course, school was shut down, and then we went back to take home, assignments, online learning, and then we also had the face-to-face. And of course, the anxiety levels were still high with all the variants and all these things. So what we did this last a couple weeks ago is we asked the superintendent to do an assessment from K through 11th grade to basically assess these folks and find out where they're at in terms of their academics. And then what we're hoping to do from that is use that as a baseline, and those students who are falling behind, provide these interventions and these options. So summer school program is going to be in full effect. We're also going to have after school programs, credit recovery, all these different things to try and assist our students as best we can. I know my son going to Teason High School, there's certain times in the day that my son can go into different classes for tutoring. The principal, I went to the PTO meeting and she made it very clear that there are teachers, and my wife being a math teacher, she told me she does the same thing. And so there are a lot of teachers that are going above and beyond to provide that. So in terms of increasing grades, one of the things that that's one of the reasons why we wanted to push to move our schools back into face-to-face coming 2022, 2023, was to basically start moving forward with the face-to-face learning and getting our kids back into some sense of normalcy, back into the education format. So we're gonna, and as part of our strategic plan, Chris, that baseline, every year we're gonna be able to track it every quarter, whenever a board member wants to ask, there's gonna be a dashboard that's gonna say, this is specifically where grade 3 is performing. And then what we need to do from there is say, okay, what are the reasons why these children are not performing at this level? And so there's a lot of things that go behind it. I'm not an expert on education, but I do know that organizing and putting things into perspective so that when the community asks, why are we investing this much amount of money from the government of Guam into the Department of Education, we can say, because these are the end results. Our kids are going to college, our kids are going into the workforce, our kids are going into the military, and they're prepared for life. Obviously, that we're dealing with a lot of students and kids and families that have, challenges. Yeah. English as a second language, the poverty level, maybe they don't, have the capacity to, afford certain things. And that's the reason why we're providing these services. And, being a public school, everything is free. We don't turn our kids away at the door. We provide a free and appropriate public education. So, our real goal right now is to get our students back in so that we can see, maybe dust ourselves off from this whole pandemic and then get ourselves to where we need to go in terms of our achievements.
That being said, Mark, you were telling me there's going to be a district-wide, like, what is it, assessment testing that's going to happen later this year?
Yeah, so I believe from what I was told, we asked the superintendent to start to conducting testing of the whole entire district to basically give us a baseline of where our students are. I mean, obviously, we cannot say our students are falling behind and we don't know where they're falling behind or who's falling behind. And so this will be we'll be able to share that with parents and say, hey, your child is in the 5th grade and he's at grade level, or he's at 5th grade and he's performing at a 3rd grade level or 2nd grade level. Then we can then give the parents and the families an option to say, hey, look, there's a summer school program. If you would like to send your child to the summer school program, this will help benefit so they can catch them up. You know what I mean? And so those are the types of interventions and the types of things that we definitely need to have. One of the other things in the resolution that we passed last night was to ask the governor to rescind the what was it called? The truancy. So now that, time and attendance coming to school, of course, obviously, with the different modes of learning, we provided opportunities for students to go online, and then the ones that come into school. And because of the suspension of truancy, sometimes students are not, coming to school. So we track them down. Don't get me wrong, Chris. We're not leaving our kids at the door. We got social workers. We got people calling these folks and saying, hey, how is your child doing? They need to come back to school.
Is it a big problem at GW, Mark?
At GW, I'm not certain with the different schools, Chris.
Yeah.
Where they're at.
You make it sound like it's a big problem, like kids, whether they're strolling into school an hour, 2, 3 hours late.
Yeah, there's some reports of that, and each of the schools, right, are doing that. And I think that's, so in education they call it behavior modifications, right? You gotta ensure. I mean, some of these folks, some of these kids, obviously. We relax a little bit of the rules so that we can accommodate certain folks. But now I think we've come to a point where, we're easing some restrictions and the department is also adapting to it. But there's no other agency, Chris, and I'll say this out in public, there's no other agency like the Department of Education. We don't get, we cannot generate our own revenue to have certain things. We're reliant on government funding. However, when it comes to partnerships, of course, we engage with our families and, obviously as they get them to the high school level, we were in high school at one point in time. So Guana Bride and I, we go out there and get the rules, right? So, but we're so behind, Chris, and I'll acknowledge that, 2 years, we need to start moving forward and we got to get our kids back into schools and get them into a routine that is going to help them prepare them for the rest of their lives.
Amen, brother. Mark, thank you for your time.
No problem. Jesus Masi, Viva Mr. Mar. I appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Anything DOE, you either got me or, of course, you got our superintendent. Yeah. And hit him up on that one. But I will follow up, Chris. You'll probably get a response today about that whole entire, the safety issue.
Yeah, thank you.
Question. Thank you so much.
And then, Mark, I know this is your last term. You guys heard it here first. But before you go and you leave the Board of Education, every time we interview you, I'm always looking at that guitar behind you. So maybe next time or sometime down the road, you pick it up and play us a song before you go.
Esta.
Okay, Steph, right on. I'm pretty sure you know some JD Crush. 904 KUAM FM Agatni Guam. We're going to take a quick break, and we're coming back to close out the show next. This is The Link, brought to you by Cabo Enterprises, IT&E, and Jack in the Box, Bananas of Zeus.
It's Feed Me Fridays.